Welcome listeners, welcome viewers, welcome back to the Sega guys, where high definition means 240p and where Austrian supermen ruled Hollywood. It's me, Dan the Mega Driver, and with me as ever, it's the RoboCop to my Terminator. It's James the Sega-holic. How you doing, mate?
Drop it!
I'll
Get
be
alive,
back.
you're coming with me.
How you doing, mate? You alright?
I'm brilliant, mate. I've been firing into Scud Race, something silly the last week. It's a video that we're working on, so I've not had much time to play anything else because I didn't really want to be putting footage up of me hitting like multiple walls, because that's whenever people just go, "Get good, mate." So I've done my best, so that's what I've been doing, mate. What about yourself?
Yeah, just the one video there. There's a few going on, isn't there?
Too many, mate.
No, it's been great. Obviously, we got Scud Race video, we've got a Virtua Fighter 3 video that you're working on. Had the Nights into Dreams video go out recently. We've got the podcast videos. So hoping our viewers and our listeners are enjoying the content, especially on YouTube, where we've got new content every week. Rocketed past 600 subscribers. We were sitting around the 500s for ages. So huge thank you to everyone that's subscribing. The outpouring and the support and the views and everything's just been pretty mind-blowing over the last few weeks.
Aye, just to kind of echo that, mate, and thank everybody very much. The support has been unbelievable. All our metrics are up, hours viewed, likes, comments, subscribers. I mean, this time last month we were at 520, we're at 630 at the time of recording. So, that march to that magic number that we never thought we would ever get close to whenever we started this, the march to 1,000 subscribers. So it's brilliant. I love, and I've said that to you as well, the kind of wee community. We've got regular people who come back and comment, whether it's on the kind of premieres of the new shows or just kind of getting involved in the comments, not just with us, but with each other. So we're starting to foster this little kind of Sega guys community as well, which is amazing to see. So again, guys, thank you so much for all that support.
Yeah, thank you indeed. And yeah, just echo what you say. Thank you so much to everyone that's viewed, listened, commented, subscribed, had a chat with us on social media. Absolutely, really appreciate it. So thank you. So here we go with another episode, one that we hope our viewers and listeners do enjoy. And it's a funny one because it feels like there was some sort of retro community hive mind going on, at least with the UK, because we all seem to come to this sort of this theme all at the same time. So there was Bloggo, there was Martin, and ourselves all came to the sort of same conclusion, albeit all independently.
It was funny to see. I'd even says to Bloggo, look, honestly, this is not. We've had this on this list of ours for weeks, and he said, same with me. It's taken him months to get round to his video. So it's like, oh my god, the chances. I mean, we laugh that you and I are kind of tuned into each other, but to see, not just one or two, but three people who, create content or get involved in kind of forming community challenges, actually doing something around the same theme, it was like...
It's great. And I think that the great thing about it is I don't think there's actually much crossover, because when I saw the headline for Bloggo's video, when he said movie games on the Mega Drive, I was like, oh god. But he's got four completely separate games, so it's great. And so yeah, if you haven't caught on to what we're doing right now, this is Mega Drive at the movies, where we're going to go talk through the lost art of the movie adaptation on console, just something that you don't see anymore, and just talk through a few of our favorite picks, various genres, various adaptations. And back in the day, this really was a regular thing, wasn't it? You always saw, you were guaranteed almost every week to have some sort of film adaptation. It didn't even have to be a new film, it could be an old film, and they'd still adapt it.
Mate, that's it. They were, synonymous and gaming and, tie-ins and films with new releases or even older ones in the 80s and 90s, the early 90s, they were just everywhere. You knew the second a movie came out, you were getting a game to go with.
Yeah.
It was an absolute cert. And then not only that, but once they kind of got older and like kind of had hit budget stages, you then got like Ocean Software were notorious for it.
I was going to say Ocean, but that was like they just never missed a beat, did they?
That, but they would bring out like the multi packs were like 4 or 5, like the movie pack 1, the movie pack 2, and it was like so good. It was, I mean, some of them were just really bland, generic games that were loosely based on the films, but some of them were actually quite kind of involved and in depth as well. I mean, I remember, slight tangent, but Back to the Future 2 on the Amiga, it was rock hard, but it was really, really cleverly done. Side scrolling on your hoverboard, holding onto the back of cars, dodging the kind of the gang and stuff like that. And it was kind of colourful, and Marty had his kind of life preserver on and his jeans, and you could tell it was really, really well done. They had tried to tap into the kind of lore of the movie, but there are some that are just utter. You just no.
I've got a Total Recall one on the Commodore 64, and that is utter bobbins.
That's the first C64 game I ever played, and it was a guy in school, the same guy who sold the overhead kick cheat disc for Sensible Soccer. That was a lie. It was him, but he had a C64 in a cartridge, and he had Total Recall on that. And I remember seeing that was the first C64 game I actually seen was Total Recall on a cartridge. I remember it being very brown.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of the Commodore 64 library is quite brown. But this one, it's especially brown. I've only got the cassette of it, and I have not played it in decades. But that was one of the ones that I had in my childhood. Another one I had was like any film that came out, but Days of Thunder I had on the Commodore 64 as well, and that came out for absolutely everything. That came out on the Game Boy and all sorts. They were just absolutely rife everywhere.
Aye. It was definitely a genre in its own right, and obviously the Mega Drive being one of the, if not the most popular 16-bit system of the kind of 90s, it was rife. There's so much on there. Some of it's great, some of it's not so great, but we've got a selection of games here to go through that I think people will enjoy us having a natter about.
Absolutely, mate. You don't see them anymore, though, do you? Movie adaptations.
Nope. No. I'm trying to think. No, I can't remember anything kind of tying in. I mean, maybe you could look at Indiana Jones, maybe coming to Xbox, that kind of thing. But again, it's not going to be based on the new movie. So, no, you mean you just don't get them. Maybe going back to the Matrix games, maybe.
I think the last major game that came to console based on a movie that was decent budget was Kong, and that was coming off the back of the PS2 era. It's one of the launch games on the 360, I think, based on King Kong. Now you've got the Avatar adaptation coming from Ubisoft, I think. It's from Ubisoft Massive.
Such a bad film, man. Sorry. I've kind of like joked. My mate's a big James Cameron fan, right? And he loves Avatar, and he's like, you just can't see past it at all. And I was like, I was like an hour into the second one. I thought I was watching the first one again. I was like, it's the same story. It's like you just rehashed it.
I mean, I'm a big James Cameron fan, probably pre-1997.
I would pretty much agree with that, mate. I would say another movie tie-in loosely, The Lord of the Rings.
Yes. So I think they're mainly based on the books now, albeit I think some of them, like Shadow of War, used a lot of the movie style iconography and setting and everything. But then you had the brilliant scrolling beat 'em up games from the Xbox and PS2 era. I think that's where, in the PS2 era, where the barrier of entry was pretty low, and you had everyone making PS2 games, and then you had ones like Starsky and Hutch and Knight Rider, and what else?
Oh, they were bad.
I'm surprised you didn't get an Airwolf one or something like that. But it was like all these 80s TV shows and films all of a sudden got these really. You got all these weird like 80s films and TV shows suddenly getting PS2 games, but obviously they didn't have enough money to get the rights to the original actors or their likenesses or anything like that. So,
Well, we have had one other recent one, remember?
Oh, we've had Gollum, yes.
yes.
Oh, that hurts my throat to do that one, Master.
Oh, and that was an absolute cluster, wasn't it?
Aye, it certainly was. Aye, I got destroyed. Much like I'll be getting destroyed probably in the Discord and Radio Sega for that Gollum impression.
But I think we've got about 10 games to go through. Because I think the Mega Drive was kind of coming off that era. No, we had the 8-bit, 16-bit home computer era where, as you say, Ocean, just as soon as there was any sort of film, they were there grabbing some developer saying, you've got to make a version of this for the C64, Spectrum, CPC 464, Amiga, Atari ST, NES, Master System, Mega Drive, and SNES. And you got to do it in 8 weeks or something. So that's why we ended up with shite like Indiana Jones, which obviously we got a video for on our channel. But all 12 versions of that were on Battle of the Ports just the weekend before we recorded this, which just shows the US Gold that one was. They were just
their name is Mud, mate. Utter mud.
Turbo
Outrun, absolute shite.
I know your personal beef revolves around a certain version of Street Fighter 2.
Let's not go there again.
It's not, but we have a couple of good ones, and I think the top one has been in the news actually quite a bit. But the first one on our list is one that I think kind of drove us or inspired us to pick this one out next, because it's seen a mod, an update, courtesy of Master Linkway, I believe.
Yep.
And that is Ghostbusters on the Mega Drive. So developed by Compile, released very early on in the Mega Drive's life, I believe 1990. Very different to every other Ghostbusters game that came out. In the fact that it's basically a run and gun, although shares a lot of similarities with the 8-bit versions or the 16-bit versions. Did you play the one where you basically you start out with 10 grand and you have to buy your own car, your traps, and you go around New York City? Did you never play that?
No, never played that one. The only Ghostbusters game I remember, mate, is I played, I think it was the Ghostbusters 2 on the Spectrum. And I just remember the level you had to drop Ray down in the tunnel to get the slime. It was hellishly hard.
Oh god, yeah. This one was hellishly hard. Although I think the Master System one is a little bit easier, but I had it on the Commodore 64, and you get the loan from the bank, and you just basically go around, and you've got a certain amount of traps, and you have to take them back, and you have to kind of earn enough money to get to the last level and beat the Marshmallow Man and Gozer. It's a pretty cool game, but this one has the map, and you go around from house to house, don't you?
Yeah.
Albeit, I found it bollock hard.
I had a wee shot just before we came on. Of course, I went Venkman. You know, we always going to go Venkman.
And the flowers are still standing.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass. Did you see it? What was it? A real nasty one, too. It's a kind of running gun platformer.
Yeah.
Visual style actually reminded me a wee bit of the Addams Family game.
Yes.
Just the kind of visual, the way it looked, the kind of the big heads and the wee bodies kind of thing. But, oh, mate, I was getting attacked by plates. There's like kettles or something flying at me. There was these wee pink blob things that like you had to kind of time the jump and fire at the same time. Because I thought, like, obviously you've got like grenades or you can throw as well, or what looks like grenades. But like you're walking about in your wee proton packs glowing at the end. Bigger than I've seen it at doctors. And and you know, I thought you would hold it in to fire a stream like turrican sort of idea. But no, it just fires a wee kind of bullet, a wee multicolored bullet. But I got to the boss on the first stage before we came on, and the resemblance to the fox from Five Nights at Freddy's was alarming. I was like, "Whoa, that's Five Nights at Freddy's!" And of course, like it's kind of very similar to the toys from the real Ghostbusters. I thought it was like it's a kind of guy in a blue suit with a top hat with no head, and then this big red fox kind of monster thing appears out his hat, and then you can only hit it when it goes into kind of demon mode.
Yeah,
and it looks like something for Five Nights at Freddy's, but it was like just bizarre, mate. It's fun enough, you know.
Yeah.
It does a job. It did remind me of that wee boss of the kind of toys. Mind you used to press a button and they would look scared, or you would. I think there was a woman that had like a trash can or something, and you flipped it over her head and you pulled it down, and she became like all these kind of humans were like half people,
You
half
mean
monster.
the toys?
Aye,
yeah, yeah.
That's what that boss. It was like kind of Five Nights at Freddy's meets one of the kind of Parker toys.
Yeah,
it was. Aye.
Yeah, it's a strange game. I had a friend that had it, but I didn't play it until about 98, 99. Because I didn't get to know him properly until then at school. And he got his Mega Drive out, and he had that Ghostbusters game, and it was fun, and it was at the time I was like, I wish I had this version on the Commodore 64 rather than the whole like create a business and some money one. But maybe there's a little bit of that in this game as well. But yeah, I think it's fun enough. It loses a little bit of the personality by being kind of a run and gun, and then you've got the obviously the chibi style Ghostbusters. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I did play a little bit of the modded version, so I played it.
Yes,
I played it a few weeks back, kind of in preparation for this, and then I played it again tonight. This time with the mod installed, and it's pretty clever, pretty cool. Winston doesn't actually, so it adds Winston to it. That's a bunch of other features. That's a save game feature. So it kind of plays a little bit tighter, feels a little bit better. But I was thinking a couple of weeks ago, I thought I put it on the easiest setting because I remembered that it was really hard. And I got to the boss on the stage like you, and then I had to call it a night. And then I thought, right, yeah, well, this one's been tuned up. I'll put this one on normal, and I just got absolutely destroyed by the tablecloths and the plates. But I did choose Winston. So you scroll all the way left or all the way right, and the silhouette. He doesn't have a profile picture, so the silhouette grays out. With profile grays out, but you select him, and his model's really good. And then in all the cutscenes, he's kind of inserted in certain parts of that. So it's really cool. So yeah, if anyone's got any memories or enjoyed that game back in the day, I definitely recommend giving that mod a go.
Aye, and know what else was funny, mate? In that level, like you come across Slimer.
Yeah,
and I hit him once, and that was him done. The plates and the tablecloths were harder to kill than Slimer.
Oh, and the invincible chandeliers.
Aye, that's right. Aye, they kind of throw like a candle at you, then they fall. Aye, like aye. But Winston in there's been good. We have the tools. We have talent.
As long as there's a steady paycheck involved, I'll believe anything you tell. Oh, it's absolutely great stuff, mate. Yeah, but I played that in the day and enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed playing it again for this episode. It really is a fun, challenging, but yeah, being the old bastards that we are and busy, that save game is crucial. And I'd like to think I've got so many games on the boil at the moment. I really need to rein it in, but I'd like to think that with that I might be able to finish it now. A little bit like Sonic 3D, and that added the save game. I've managed to finally finish that. So, no, great stuff, mate.
Right, love it. Definitely check it out if you haven't. It's good.
Yeah,
good, kind of cheesy fun.
Yeah, and it's Ghostbusters. Can't go wrong with Ghostbusters.
That's it. You can, mate.
Next one I got on the list is an absolute favourite of mine. This is Terminator 2, the arcade game, and I first saw this in an arcade, big, huge cabinet, two Uzis on there. I remember first seeing Operation Wolf in the arcade and thinking, oh, this is the nuts. And then this had two, and not only did it have two gigantic Uzis on there that swung around like turrets, but it was bloody Terminator, man. It was just like, this is the best game ever.
I remember the adverts for the Menacer pack for the Mega Drive.
Yeah.
I remember seeing those. I mean, I got it on the Amiga and played it with a mouse. Not quite as much fun as a Menacer probably, but it's you can play with the controller. It's fun enough. It's a pretty good port given the kind of comparisons to the arcade hardware, the limitations of the Mega Drive. It's fast enough. It keeps up good pace, challenging. Sprites are good. The Terminators are really detailed on it. The ships that fly by in the backgrounds as well. The kind of Terminator, I forget what they call them. The kind of scout ships.
Yeah,
they go along the backgrounds.
HKs?
The level of detail is great on it. It's a good port.
Yeah. So originally by Midway, released in time for the film in 1992. I think it shows actually. It's quite prescient. Obviously, Midway they just made Pit Fighter, which had the digitized graphics, taking the photos of digitizing them to put onto their characters. And obviously they're applying those same techniques in Terminator 2, the arcade game, which those techniques would later on be used to create a certain Mortal Kombat.
Yep.
So it's really cool in that respect. Obviously the port's done by Probe, published by Acclaim, and that's sometimes it's a little bit hit and miss, but I think it's a fantastic port. As I got it as a kid, I was a huge fan of the film. It's one of these where I don't know about you, mate, but like people at school were talking about it, and it was one of the first like adult films that I saw when I was like, I would have been 9 years old at the time when I saw it. And I was like, "Can I watch it, please? Please let me watch it."
I remember my uncle got a pirate copy on tape. There was a guy in his work used to get them, like people who are like a lot younger than us are going to listen to this and wonder why that's a big deal. Right? It used to, Dan's laughing. It used to take a year for films in America to come out over here. There was a year's gap. See all these people. There was that message that I showed you. That person complaining about. Why don't you release all of these episodes at once? Haven't they wait a week for another episode? It's like you don't know your bomb. There was a year between cinema releases in the US and the UK. I remember he got Terminator 2, he got RoboCop 2, and he got Die Hard 2. And mate, the quality of these was questionable, right? It was like
it always were.
Oh, I mean, you think like anybody gets pirated copies of like films and they're off DVD screeners and all this, and it's on. Well, it's not quite 1080p, It's like. Mate, we had people who were sitting there with a camcorder and a trench coat trying to put these onto tapes.
Yeah.
But I got to see it very, very kind of early on because of that copy, and it wasn't the greatest quality. But you're right, the hype around T2, was it 91 for T2?
Is it 91? It might well have been, yeah.
And I'd have been 12 at the time. Whenever it came out, I mean, in terms of being able to see kind of more grown-up movies at the time, like my uncle let me watch RoboCop when I was like, I'm talking like 10 or something. Like,
yeah, I was similar. I think I saw RoboCop after, but my granddad was watching it, and I was like, "Can I watch RoboCop?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, all right then." And didn't really question it. It was like Murphy getting blown away at the beginning. I was like, "Ah!"
I remember my uncle covered my eyes at Murphy's execution. He's like, "You don't need to see this bit, sonny. He's getting killed. That's all you need to know." It's like,
but you that was like memory unlocked talking about, because that's how I saw Terminator 2 was on a pirate VHS. And yeah, it's like you say, mate. People you go like if you try and download a film. Well, I've done it before. When you go on like Pirate Bay or some nonsense, and there's people gone there going, "This is a terrible quality of copy." Like, mate, at least it's kind of HD, and you can you can kind of make it out. But it reminds me, I think our copy, I don't know if you ever went like abroad in Europe in that period, like late 80s, early 90s, and there used to be kind of like the I remember it being definitely something in Cyprus. There was like these stores where they sell all the Lilos and stuff and postcards and stuff, and they would have these huge like where you got your postcards and you spin it round, and they'd have them, and they'd be full of pirate DVDs. I remember that because we got Turtles from it, and the Turtles copy was so bad, like the Turtles movie.
Hey, I'm just laughing because even you said pirate DVDs, it's pirate
Did I?
VHS.
Pirate VHS.
You know what I mean? Just somebody going, see what DVDs? And it's like, no, VHS.
VHS. This is 10 years before DVD.
Mental, mate.
Yeah. But yeah, the quality was poor. That's where the whole advert comes from, isn't it? The old. Yeah. I can't understand a word they're saying. Train spotting. I'm not surprised.
Choose life. Choose a job. Choose a fucking big telly.
What's it saying? He goes, verbal contract ain't worth the paper it's written on.
That's what you get the doon 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 little doon doon doon. You wouldn't steal a film.
Oh, it made a comeback in the memes. You wouldn't take a cheap submarine under the water, would you? But
well,
no, that one popped up the other week, and I was like, oh god.
Honestly, mate, that's another story. Madness with madness.
But back to T2, the arcade game. God, that was a tangent and a half, wasn't it? But back to T2, the arcade game. Yeah, I think the opening level is obviously set in the future at the beginning, all out in Judgment Day with that first bit of the film, which was mind blowing. And then you went into kind of like the underground hideout. You have like you've got like the resistance fighters and people sitting around like the big burning oil drums.
That's right.
You can shoot them by accident. They go. And then you've got that horrible bastard level where you've got to protect John Connor. Have you got to that one where he's in the car and it's impossible to do? I think Jim off Drink a Beer Play a Game said the best way to do it, you've got to memorize which direction the hovercraft come from to stand. And even then, it's so tough. I used to do the level skip cheat and just go past it, and then the rest of the game's a doddle. After that third stage, the rest of it's easy.
No, but it's a good report. As I say, the kind of level of detail that's in it, very playable. It's standard kind of arcade port fare for the time, but as a kind of movie tie-in, it's, as we said at the kind of start, there was some that weren't very faithful.
Yeah,
they were just kind of like a very basic game with a skin put on there to loosely kind of tie it in.
Yeah.
This wasn't. This was a proper built as a Terminator experience. In the arcade, and it came home relatively well.
Yeah, it's a big budget arcade release. You'd obviously got all the licenses and everything. They got Arnie's likeness in there. When you play the 2-player, you've got 2 Arnie likenesses. There's a blue one and a red one either side. Robert Patrick, his likeness is in there as the T1000. When you get to the last level, he pops up on the screen. You shoot him in the face, his face comes apart, or he gets the hole in his eye. It's brilliant stuff. My only regret with the Mega Drive version is I've got the game. I think I got it for one Christmas or something, but I never got the Menacer. And I've still been trying to get the Menacer. When we said before, I love my light gun games, but the Menacer it's so hard to get complete. There'll be like, oh, I've got the Menacer receiver, or I've got the Menacer gun, or I've got the scope. But if you want to buy the whole lot, it's quite expensive. So maybe one day I'll find one for a price that I'm willing to pay. But at the moment, it's just been I've not got there.
The usual. Prices going up. As always.
Yeah, although I managed to get a King of Fighters, which I've been after for a while, for a decent price, but that's by the by. Cool, mate. We'll move on to the next one. The next one is a huge one, and actually features quite prominently in the Console Wars book, and I believe it was in the TV adaptation as well, wasn't it? And that game is Aladdin by is it by Virgin who do it? It is Virgin, isn't it? It's Virgin. Dave Perry. I couldn't remember if it was Virgin or Shiny. It's Virgin before the formation. Then, the precursor of kind of those cell animated video games, and at the time the look was absolutely breathtaking.
Oh, it's it's a gorgeous, gorgeous game. I mean, I know there's always a kind of age-old debates about whether the Mega Drive or the Super Nintendo version's the better.
Yeah.
I think people kind of say that because of kind of like development kind of deadlines and things like that, that perhaps the Mega Drive as a game isn't as good as the Super Nintendo version. I've never played the Super Nintendo version, but it was a game I was in complete awe of. Like, again, as we've kind of mentioned Aladdin on previous shows as well, we've spoken about the Mega Drive, and to me back then it was like someone just put the cartoon on a cartridge. It was like everything, like, even the enemies going, come on. They just looked like they'd been ripped out of a Disney cartoon. Like the facial expressions and the mannerisms and everything about them was just like the wee guy throwing the daggers and stuff.
Yeah.
He throws them, and he's just they all had these lovely little kind of Disney nuances. Aladdin himself is gorgeously animated, and again they've captured the actual look of him, like his face and everything is just spot on. Just I love that game. It's definitely one if I ever put the Mega Drive on, it's one that I'll always have a quick shot of. Just the charm of it, just the music, everything about it, the kind of the comedy things, like whenever if you die, you get Aladdin sitting like that. Genie's like the kind of the guy in the box in the corner.
And it's got the rug, isn't it? The magic carpet.
Wow, brilliant.
Oh, it's got so much personality, and I've played the SNES one, and it's never clicked with me. I just find it may get better later on. I've just never got far enough, but I always found it. If people say the gameplay's better, I find it quite clunky, and also quite formulaic. There's bits where you're kind of, when you jump on enemies and when you swing from things, it feels almost automated, if you know what I mean, like scripted.
Right.
So I don't feel, maybe it's just me, but I don't feel entirely in control. And obviously it looks nowhere near as good as the Mega Drive one. I mean, back in the day, everyone hailed the Mega Drive one. I mean, even the Nintendo, senior Met staff was, like saw it and they were just like, oh shit, we're in trouble. And back in the day, there was that version that was lauded. And I don't know. Sometimes I think that this sort of, the SNES version's better, is people just trying to be edgy, or maybe it's that the fact that Nintendo has still got an enormous presence within gaming, and Sega, as far as hardware concerned, obviously no longer. So I don't know if that plays a part in it, but I think that the Mega Drive version is the better version without a doubt for me. I mean, it's that version that got re-released recently as well. So maybe I don't know if there's any fatigue or anything like that that's involved. But yeah, I think I mentioned this before on a previous pod when we spoke about it. But it was Aladdin that I got for Christmas 1993, and my dad's like, what do you want for Christmas? I'm going to get you Mortal Kombat. And I'm like, can I get Aladdin? And he's like, what?
What are you talking about, son? You don't want to rip some heads off.
We'll play a bloody cartoon instead of ripping heads off. But yeah, didn't regret it because I absolutely loved it. I still love it. Enjoy playing it through it. Yeah, it's tough, and there's bits that I don't think are the best designs, like the whole Cave of Wonders when you're trying to escape and everything, are a bit of a pain.
Top of the carpet.
Yeah, you got to follow the fingers, and you need to memorize by the end, because it's like by the time the finger's gone up twice, the rock's already there. It comes up so quick. But no, it's great stuff, mate. I think you mentioned this was one of your top, in one of our older episodes, it was an old video actually that maybe we should republish on here one day. This is one of your top 12 Mega Drive games. I
remember, again, it was a school friend who got the Mega Drive 2 pack.
Yeah.
And Aladdin was on the box. It was the pack-in game for it. And that's never I first seen it. And it's one of the games that, if you've seen it when it was new, I think it was so striking in its closeness to the actual movie that it really did stick with you. It's just, honestly, it's absolutely gorgeous. You just, it's challenging. Can be quite, I don't know, with some of the jumps as well, like they're quite unforgiving.
Yeah.
Some of the wee platforms that kind of drop down, you've got very small windows to get off them, and you can end up falling all the way back down. Oh, for Christ's sake, climb back up the pole, shimmy back across again take it back, and then obviously you can hit the wee kind of the genie head-shaped vases that go, and then they blow everything up that's on the screen as well. But it's just got so much charm.
Yeah, it really has. But an undoubted classic in my eyes.
Yeah,
but yeah, absolutely. Music, sound, gameplay. I think it's got it all. Moving on to the next one, I think, speaking of music, anyone that has seen a video by a Mr. Sega Lord X will recognize the music from this one. And this one is Sunsoft's adaptation of 1989's Michael Keaton Batman movie. And I think we're big fans of this one, aren't we, mate?
Aye, definitely, mate. I mean, that music has become synonymous with Sega Lord X. Thank you for watching. You know, it's like, but it kind of captures the mood of the movie really well. I mean, my first experience with a kind of Batman '89 game was obviously the Spectrum kind of version, and then I would later on get the Amiga and the Batman pack and kind of play what you said there about what Ocean do is that they kind of basically make the same game for everything, so it just scales. It's like, you know, you get like your Amiga and your ST versions, and then as you go back, it just, they strip the colours, and you end up with the Spectrum's a very basic version of it. It's all blues and blacks and stuff. But that movie tie-in, that Batman movie game was very basic. It you know, it's like kind of walking along, fire up your rope, go up, hit somebody with a batarang, dodge a grenade with multiple bobs in the level. That these wee guys were all Bob. Gun. But it was very, very basic. The Batmobile and the Batwing levels were good. But apart from that, the kind of actual Batman aspect wasn't that great. But the Sunsoft game is really good. It's challenging. It captures the mood of the whole kind of darkness of the film brilliantly. So it's a definite classic. Yeah,
I completely agree with that. And yeah, I think the thing about it is that it's challenging, yes, but it isn't too challenging. It's not to the point where you're playing like, I mean, again, we're talking back to our home computer days here, but some of those games, I had the Commodore 64. I didn't have the Batman movie adaptation, but there was Batman versus the Joker, and then there was another Batman, the Great Cape Crusader, and they were rock hard, absolutely rock hard. And then I think the it's just called Batman, but Sunsoft's Batman on the Mega Drive or Genesis is, it doesn't feel unfair. It controls really tightly. Obviously, it's got the Batman design from the film. As far as the rest of the designs go, it's very, very loosely based on the film. It doesn't use much of the theme or at all, I think. But the music is absolutely fantastic there.
Aye.
It's a very early game, isn't it? We're talking 1990. I mean, it was the Japanese version comes in one of those tiny little boxes, doesn't it? Which is really cool.
Oh no, it's like I say, it did capture that kind of dark theme, which was obviously Batman '89 was a total shift away from like your Adam West kind of the kind of over the top cartoony, colourful bow bop smasher, this kind of stuff. It was everybody been crying out for the Batman movie to be closer to the kind of graphic novel style, darker, grittier, edgier, and the game does that really well. You're right, the controls on it. The thing I found at the start, it took me ages to realise what bits of the scenery I could click the rope onto.
Yeah,
like that kind of threw me. But because there was one part when I first started playing, I'm going, how the hell did I get past this? And I went, all right, I can hook the rope up there, right? The kind of grapple up there. But you've only got limited batarangs as well, don't you? I think the Amiga game, you could just sit there and throw them to your heart's content. It was like unlimited supply. But that kind of added a wee bit to the challenge, the limited kind of batarangs as well. But obviously, you get to your fisticuffs.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then. Yeah, and I think you talk about the melee in it, the fisticuffs. The way he punches really does feel like a Keaton Batman as well. You can almost feel that he's got no neck movement when he punches.
Actually, So you want to be able to move your head, Mr. Wayne?
Oh yeah, but it's absolutely brilliant. I think I think that's one I'm probably craving to play the most actually after we talk these. But got a few more to get through, mate. But yeah, sensational one. Another sensational game. Another one that's best on the Mega Drive actually. Not necessarily based off a single film, but this is RoboCop versus Terminator. So based on the 4-issue miniseries comic book, but I feel like we have to include this one because obviously we've spoken about the Terminator already. RoboCop, I don't think he has a decent game on the Mega Drive apart from this one, but despite the original crossover being rooted in the comic, this one just leans so heavily into the movies of each of the respective franchise that I think it's got to be here, isn't it?
Aye, and this is this has been getting rumored to be a film like since the 90s. Like,
yeah,
the comic came out in 92. So I mean, as you said, it's 4 issues. It's Frank Miller. I had these like back in the day, back in my teens, and like they were, Frank Miller speaks for itself, Sin City and stuff like that. So it's like just dark, violent, aggressive, gritty. The original premise for it is that Skynet basically became self-aware by communicating with RoboCop. So, like, there's a soldier from the Resistance goes back to Detroit and kills RoboCop before Skynet can. It's basically in this timeline. It's RoboCop who like allows Skynet to go on. It's the kind of communicating with him that allows it to become self-aware. But somehow in the future, the machines send back 3 Terminators to protect RoboCop in order to self-preserve, to allow Skynet to become activated. The soldier gets wounded but not killed, and then RoboCop, if I remember, sides with the humans because obviously, these prime directives protect the innocent. So that's how the whole battle comes about. And it's just like, I think that if I remember in the comics, the T-800s, they refer to, because I think they've got actual, whenever they're speaking, they refer to RoboCop as the creator. I'm pretty sure, but that's the whole kind of premise of it, is that it's RoboCop's technology and that kind of cyborg aspect of him being half human, half machine, that Skynet connects with him, becomes self-aware, and then that whole kind of time loop kind of jumping, similar to the kind of John Connor thing, that kind of sets the scene. But the art style in it is phenomenal. It should have been a film. It should have been done when Arnie and Peter Weller were in their absolute prime.
Yeah.
The fact that it'll probably never get done, and if it does get done, it won't have the same impact because those two are too old now. But back to the game, the game is absolutely brilliant, and it does, as you said rightly, it taps into that visual style. It is gory as fuck. It's like you shoot somebody and they're splattering. Yeah. It's like it's oddly satisfying. Walking about as RoboCop. The character model for RoboCop is brilliant. It's the Auto 9 is perfectly recognisable when he's walking about with it. The platform aspects are a wee bit kind of almost as jarring as RoboCop 2 was on the Amiga. Like, he jumps and then it's like he's like suspended in a half kind of walking pose, and then lands and then gets back to it again. It's like, but it's great. It really is. Captures all the kind of traits and the kind of visual cues of both films. Also, you've got like Ed 209 comes in at points as well and stuff like that. There's loads of different kind of crossovers. But at one point, you're fighting the T-800s whenever they're dressed in the kind of shades and the leather jacket. But then later on in the game, as you go into the kind of the hive mind of Skynet, you're facing off against actual exoskeleton T-800s. Yeah. It's such a good game. My first place I played it was a Game Gear, believe it or not.
I hear that's a pretty decent port. It
is fantastic, mate.
That's one I'm going to have to get my hands on. I've only ever played the the Mega Drive port, which is universally held to be the best one. I mean, the SNES version just took out all the gore,
of course.
So, and as you say, it's one of the most satisfying parts of it is when you start off on the streets of Detroit and you're shooting someone and they don't just fall out, they're just like really shower of blood. And I was whatever 1994, I would have been 11 around that time. I was like, yeah. But yeah, it's got, at this point I was watching all of it, and you get to like the third stage and you have that shootout with the T-800. You're mowing people down, but then you get there and then this big guy comes wrong that looks a bit like Arnie. You're shooting him, and his skin starts peeling away, and then you got the term. But then kind of forgets about that and fights Z209 in OCP, and then goes to the building site and fights Kane from RoboCop 2.
Kane, let's step outside. Get out of here! You're obsolete. That thing is a killer. I'm sorry, but those two films, RoboCop 1 and 2, I could literally recite it with impressions from start to finish. Because, again, Everborn Saga put a tweet out, I think he quoted Sarah Bond, actually. She done you got offered $100,000 to recite 90% of a movie from start to finish. Which one is it? RoboCop, every time. And it's honestly my favourite film ever. So good.
Maybe that's a future episode, though. Just James recites RoboCop. But yeah, and then I think after that, then it leans further into the Terminator iconography, and just the weapons are brilliant. You got that grenade launcher that they both got. They kind of float around the screen. It's like, and then
you've got the gun as well. That's kind of clearly meant to be the Cobra assault cannon.
Yeah,
just goes state of the art. Bang bang.
And then you got, as Skynet starts taking over, you got waves of waves, and you got the exoskeletons, and then you've got the gold Terminators come up, and I think you do fight one of the hover, like the flying things, and it's just so good, so satisfying, tough as balls, but so good.
Should have been a film, mate. Honestly.
Should have been a film. That's why it's on this list. I mean, when the game was announced, the film was allegedly in development.
Yep.
Because I remember the article, and I believe it was in Mean Machines Sega. That's where I think it was, and it had the image of the RoboCop and one of the exoskeletons fighting in the comic books, just one of the panels. It said, RoboCop versus Terminator. The adaptation film of the comic book is also being adapted to a game for the Mega Drive. And it's, oh my God. And yeah, it just never came. So this kind of is an adaptation of a film that never was, as well as being a kind of a perfect blend of two stalwarts, two iconic films from our childhood.
You just imagine Arnie and Peter Weller at their prime as those characters on screen at the same time. Dead or alive, you're coming with me. Get down, stupid RoboCop. Get down. I've come back here to kill you.
Think back then. I know the rumor was that Arnie, when he saw the script for T2, he's like, I'm not the good guy, I'm the Terminator. But then they paid him $15 million, and he was happy. But I think after Terminator 2, he didn't go back to playing a villain till for some years. I think because he had his whole governor campaign going on. He didn't play a villain until Ice to See You.
Oh God! Would kill the dinosaurs. The Ice Age.
Oh dear! Oh, but brilliant game, brilliant. But we're gonna stay on Arnie, and I think some of this comes from our episode that we were going to do last Christmas, which was entitled "Jingle All the Way," where we were going to go through Arnie games on the Mega Drive. But this is moving from one old Schwarzenegger game to another, which is our third Schwarzenegger related game on the list, but not Terminator related. This is the fantastic True Lies. completely different to what everything else that's been on here. We've had a gallery shooter in T2 Arcade. We've had 3 platform-based games, 2 running guns and a couple of platformers. But this is an overhead action game, which I only played this a little bit before I played it last year in preparation for that episode, and I absolutely love this, mate.
It's one I've not actually played, mate.
Have you not?
I've not played. I had the Amiga version, which was a kind of similar standard fare kind of side on, kind of your standard kind of platformy kind of shooty kind of game.
Yeah.
But I've never played the Mega Drive game. I unfortunately didn't have the time to try it before coming on.
Oh, well, this is one I completely recommend. Obviously, it's done from a top-down perspective, but the sprites on it are really chunky. I'm playing it on my CRT, which is obviously at the original intended resolution, so it's not all stretched out. But Arnie is just like the characters are so thick. His shoulders are like 6 feet wide. He's walking around and he's shooting all the terrorists at the beginning, but you've got to save hostages. You got to, it sounds kind of rote, sounds kind of the usual video game tropes, but it's just done really well. He's got like a dive mechanic where he can dive behind cover. The weapons that he picks up, and it seems, as I say, it seems like standard fare these days, but back then I was thinking this is the different guns that you can pick up, the way that you pick up ammo, the way that you've got objectives that you have to fulfill. It's like find the documents or rescue these hostages, or it's actually a really cool game. So yeah, definitely try it out, mate. It looks great. The music's pretty decent. It plays really well, and there's a decent amount of challenge in there. And obviously the film itself is we watched it not too long ago, but it's a fantastic game for a fantastic film.
So good. I love the movie. So many brilliant lines in that as well. Like gets in the lift with the horse. Could you push the button for the tab floor, please? No, I love as well. Whenever he goes up on the roof, obviously he's chasing the guy, and he's jumped. He's on the motorbike. And he's away across, and lands in a swimming pool, and he goes back with the horse. And then it goes into slow motion. You hear Arnie going, yeah. And then the horse just stops, and then he goes over the top and just pulls him back up. Hey, back up. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you? He's the horse.
Yes, I know. I remember.
I mean, we hit the guy, and you let him get away. It's like.
He's superb in that film. The film is fantastic, and my wife loves it. She's a big fan of it as well. And she especially loves the scene with Jamie Lee Curtis. When
the tape recorder.
Yeah.
Take off your dress and lie on the bed. It's like do it, Simo. Do it very slowly. He gets the guy in the work to record the lines.
Yeah.
He gets a transcript for Tom Arnold.
Yeah.
The transcript goes from page 10 to page 12. Where's the goddamn page?
That's another thing. I mean, Tom Arnold's likeness is in the game as well, and he's in your earpiece telling you what to do and everything. It's a really cool adaptation. Like it's obviously a proper game of that era. So you've got the whole storyboards with you're sneaking into this mansion, blah blah blah. You've got to do this sort of stuff, and it's honestly, mate, it's fantastic. So, not just our listeners and viewers, but you as well. We've got to try out. I say,
mate, I'll be trying that out whenever we finish recording, and I'll probably end up watching the film as well now, because just remember Tom Arnold as well. That he hides behind the lamppost, and the guy fires the gun, and every bullet, and he goes, "Oh, thank God, checks his balls in the way." Because he's a lamppost.
Oh, he's brilliant in that as well, though.
Oh, superb.
I think we'll end up with a list of games and films that we're going to watch after this, mate.
That's it, Well, you've got to watch the films to play the game.
Oh, I know. Well, that was the thing, isn't it? And that's kind of what we're talking about, that Lost Art, like, When you saw these films, especially as you know, the demographic back then was a lot younger than it was now.
Aye.
You didn't have 40-year-old gamers. There weren't as many of us as there were back then. You were kids. You watched Terminator or RoboCop or True Lies, and you know you wanted to play. You wanted to play. You know, you got out your Terminator action figures. Do you ever have any? I had the exploding T1000, the battle damage T100.
That's right. I had the was a battle damaged RoboCop. You could take off the chest plate and put a damaged one on.
Yeah, God, I remember that one. Yeah.
Was it Park? Was it Parker made
I
them?
think they were Parker as well. Yeah.
Aye, that's right. Jeez.
What time is that? That's one thing I don't want to get into is collecting toys. No super nerds gaming. He collects the toys. But yeah, that's a whole other can of worms there. But good memories. And that sort of
unlocked
stuff.
a memory for back here, and it's tied. This is a total tangent. You're talking about Parker toys, right? And that reminds me, like, obviously they made Ghostbusters ones as well that we said. And I remembered about the Ghostbusters firehouse because I seen Super Nerds had restored one.
Yeah.
And then I remembered that I lost Hound's head down a drain a day after getting them. I got bought them in Clydebank, and Hound's head, when it came out, it popped off and it rolled out. I was in my back garden. I was a kid. And I transformed him. His head popped off and it rolled along, went down a drain. So I had to draw a head and stick it on with sellotape. And colour it in green. There you go.
Why do you guys transform? It's simple. Disguise.
We have no head because it fell down a drain. What the hell are you doing with your head, Hound?
Your head smells like sewage.
Just remembered that there. Total tangent.
Yeah.
All these memories all tying together to create that. There you go. But I remember that. Painful day. Painful.
Speaking of toys though, mate, one toy line that I was surprised was the toy line for this series of films. And that's the Alien films. I couldn't believe that they got, because they absolutely scared the absolute shit out of me when I was a kid. I had nightmares about them for months and months when I saw those films.
See, I'm going to tell a story here because Sam, my best mate, listens to this podcast, right? And Sam and I have a memory about this because Sam loves aliens, right? And I'm a shite bag, right? So Sam brought Aliens up to watch. And I sat with my remote control, right, and put it on manual tracking, and sat and fucked the tracking up, so he would think something was wrong with his tape. Something right with this tape, mate. We can't watch it. It took me years to watch Aliens. I was terrified of them whenever I was like a kid, basically like 11, 12 years old. I was terrified of them, mate.
Yeah. No, I was terrified of them. I remember I'd have really vivid dreams of them, and I'd wake up just like, Jesus Christ. Love them now though, but you know, I mean, well, the first two are absolutely some of the best films of all time. Like obviously David Cameron again doing Aliens.
Did you say David Cameron?
Did I say David Cameron? No, of course David Cameron didn't do it. James Cameron, of course. Imagine David Cameron making a film.
They've all got lots of guns. Brilliant, mate.
What you need to do is get together to kill these aliens.
And then give them a vote for Brexit.
Oh, let's not go down that. But
no, let's not.
Almost as controversial as Brexit, though, is the game that we're going to talk about, with the film that this game is based on, is Alien 3. So, did you ever play the Alien 3 game?
Yep. Again, first played it on the Amiga. The Mega Drive game is very, very similar, near identical, in fact. Side-scrolling, kind of up and down ladders, shooting game, visuals. a very long-legged Ripley with a shaven head.
Yeah,
I always thought that she looked a bit kind of out of
gangly.
really gangly. But again, the aliens in them are brilliantly drawn. The visual style's decent on it, but in terms of a game, I found it very, very linear. Like there was not much to it. I thought it was very, very basic.
Yeah, so you got to go around. You got to rescue people again.
I guess they're all up to the walls.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's like
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I actually really liked this one. Growing up, I thought it was fantastic. Obviously, let's say as a kid, I was a bit older when I played this, and I'm thinking, this came out in like 92, 93 maybe. I played it around 95. I finally got around to it. But yeah, I found it quite fun. It's quite satisfying shooting the aliens. When you go,
I can
just explode everywhere. Yeah,
aye.
and they're like,
The wee face huggers, they jumped at you as well,
Yeah,
didn't they?
yeah. It's not like it's not tense. It's not like playing something like Alien Trilogy or anything like that on the Saturn or PlayStation, or obviously the Alien Isolation, which is super tense. This is just basically another run and gun, very similar to the Terminator game.
Aye. Again, maybe not as challenging as like a RoboCop versus a Terminator, but a lot of these kind of movie tie-ins did that. They were all also the hardware being kind of limited at that time.
Yeah,
they were either top down or side scrolling. And you either shoot something or jump to get something or rescue something or collect something. So it was
when you're rescuing something, you're only walking up to it, getting a little ding. No, sorry, the scientist or criminal is like runs off.
probably get eaten off screen or something.
Yeah, but I thought it was decent enough. I actually picked it up fairly recently. The box is quite interesting because the name isn't on the spine. It's just got Arena and Sega. The name's missing. It's obviously a misprint somewhere. I think it's quite common for that version. But no, I actually really enjoy it. I know it's a little bit shallow, a little bit linear, but then kind of a lot of games were back then. Especially these movie licenses. But yeah, I found the gunplay really satisfying. The way that you kill the aliens and stuff, and decent challenge. Rock hard, but once you figured out what you were doing, I thought it was brilliant.
Aye, I mean the film was tough.
Well, yeah, the film is poor. That's always the thing about adapting it to a game. I mean, there's lots of versions of Alien 3 like adaptations. Obviously, there's various NES Master System ports, and as you say, it was on the Amiga as well, which were all very similar. All slightly different, but all it's the same premise. But they've all got hundreds of thousands of aliens in them, xenomorphs. Alien Trilogy, there's loads of xenomorphs, but the film there's just the one. It tries to be the first Scat film again, and it just gets it so wrong. The director's cut made things a little bit better, but
I mean, I was surprised whenever I got it. I picked up one of these ones I got up at the bars, and I was pleasantly surprised whenever I turned it on that it was actually as close to the Mega Drive game.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember like Jurassic Park on the Amiga was absolute mince. And I wanted it to be like the Mega Drive game, and it was nothing like it. Absolutely nothing like it. It was kind of top down and chunky characters and stuff. Whereas I wanted that kind of, Alan Grant platform and jumping, fighting raptors kind of things. And so, I mean, to be fair there, the fact that the Amiga version was that close to the Mega Drive, there's only one disc it was on as well. It was quite it was a good side by side. They were, well, from memory anyway, they were pretty close.
Yeah, I think for the levels use a lot of the same assets, so maybe that helps save on the storage. But yeah, a good one I think. But moving on to one that you've seen, as you just mentioned it, mate. The next one on the list is Jurassic Park. So you played this on the Amiga, and I suppose you've got the frame to compare it to the Mega Drive version.
Aye, I like the Mega Drive version of it. Again, I thought it kind of tapped in well to the movie, although the dinosaurs were, again, I think for the time, they would have been obviously. I've kind of played Jurassic Park a lot later on the Mega Drive, but I think back then, I think people would have been quite impressed by the dinosaurs, the models that they use for it. I mean, the raptors are really, really well done. Gameplay wise, quite kind of challenging, exploration to an extent, platform. It was great. The Amiga version, as I said, it was night and day away from. It was cartoony, top down, just nowhere near the kind of the level of kind of tenseness that they tried to put in to the Mega Drive game.
Yeah.
So very, very, very different games.
Yeah, the Mega Drive one I always found exceptionally tough because it is quite brutal. The way that Alan Grant moves, found it quite chunky, quite stilted sometimes. The way he kind of jumps by lifting both his legs up and just putting his arms up like that, doesn't he? And it was like, and then suddenly it's like a lot of blind jumps. Sometimes you'll just land in front of a Triceratops chops to go, oh, lose a big chunk of his health. I wasn't the biggest fan of it.
No?
I did like the fact that you could play as the Velociraptor.
That's right.
Which was good fun, but I always found it a little bit too tough. And I think I was, and it's probably going to sound like heresy now, but my head was turned. My first Jurassic Park game I played was on the Super Nintendo, and that's a completely different game. That's a kind of a top-down kind of exploration. You're Alan Grant, you're walking around the park, and he's top down. He doesn't shoot things. He's got like a big taser, and he shoots electricity out of it. And then you can go into kind of like the I couldn't say what they were, like the facility, and in there it kind of turns into a first person mode.
Right.
And my friend was raving it about it at the time. So when I went back to this platform version, it was like it's another platform, but the SNES version was pretty cool. My opinion's changed a fair bit in recent years, having gone back to the SNES version. When you see something in your mind's eye as a kid, and I remember the top down bits pretty much as I remember it, but the whole first person thing in my memory, in my mind's eye, it was Doom. It was basically, really detailed velociraptors that came towards you. And then when I played it, it was just like the dinosaurs looked like Gribbis out from McDonald's. I mean, they're just blobs of color with faces on.
I'm just, the reason why I'm looking off screen is because I think the Amiga and the Super Nintendo versions are very, very close.
Oh, really? So
I think because there's a first person part in the Amiga game as well.
Yeah.
So, and looking at it again, it was top down. Visual style's different. It's a bit more. I know the Super Nintendo version is quite cartoony, but the Amiga version is even more so and a lot more basic. But it looks very similar in terms of layout, and it's got that kind of first person bit in it as well. So there you go. So perhaps it's a case of they decided that the home computer versions would align with the Super Nintendo ones because they are very, very similar.
It was Ocean, wasn't it? So obviously, as we know, Ocean and US Gold, both of them would stick it on absolutely everything.
Aye.
So it wouldn't surprise me if they took bits from each one and just mixed them all up depending on the platform they were working on. I mean, the Game Gear version is different again. I think the Master System version is also different. So it's just developers, man. I mean, you got developers today saying, "Oh, how can developers develop for the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S? Like, what they're having to develop for two systems? Two systems?
You've only got two."
Oh, what about
madness? When you always picked up the box for like the Spectrum game, and you looked at the back and it had all the screenshots for the Amiga.
Yeah,
just to con you even more. You knew you weren't getting that, but you didn't realise you were getting the shite that you ended up with.
Game images may vary depending on platform.
That's right. There you go. The tiny wee print.
I know. I've got a couple down there for the Commodore 64, and it should be criminal what they did with those. You load the tape up, and you're like, "What? That's that's not what I bought.
I mean, to tie into the Jurassic Park theme, it's like Jeff Goldblum. Whenever you finally go home and put it on,
Yeah.
that is one of my pile of shit.
But Jurassic Park, obviously, the film is a classic. It's actually my daughter's favourite film of all time.
Well, same with mine.
Oh, really?
Oh, mate, she's dinosaur daft.
Yeah.
Like, again, tangent here, right? But we went a walk up in the kind of the meadows, right? And there was a kind of bit of the path that it was all kind of rocky and gravelly, and she was down brushing away bits of the gravel and dirt, and there was like a couple of stones buried.
Yeah.
So she thought she'd found fossils. Daddy, look, I found a dinosaur. I'm like,
Oh.
wow. But she's just dinosaur daft. She watches Camp Cretaceous on Netflix. If we have like a movie night, it's like Jurassic Park. She loves the first one. But honestly, so our girls would get on well, mate.
Yeah, I think so, mate. I think so. I mean, the film's sensational anyway. I mean, I loved it as a kid as well. It's one of these ones that doesn't age, I think.
I think the first film still looks better than the special effects in the later ones.
Yeah, 100%.
The T-Rex looks, and even the Raptors, they look a lot better than like Dominion and all these kind. It's weird that making them CGI has kind of made them look even more fake.
But there are bits of CGI in the films. They do a lot of the dinosaurs are CGI. It's just that how is that CGI in 1993 so much better? I know it's a mix of CGI and physical effects.
Aye,
but it just looks so much better than
just that T-Rex scene in the first one is still mind blowing. Whenever it destroys the car and knocks it over the edge and brilliant.
Yeah, and replicated quite nicely in the game as well. Oh, just a couple left, mate. But I think the next one, another family favourite. This one, the film we watch every year. The game don't play anywhere near as often, but this is Home Alone. Obviously, this is the one that Martin has chosen recently for his Mega Drive Score Challenge. Any thoughts on this one?
I mean, apart from the fact it's painfully short, you know, but what can you really do with I mean, he was in his house in his back garden. There's no exactly much you can extend on that.
He goes to like all the neighbours' houses and everything. I was laughing to myself when I was thinking I didn't need to play it for this because I played it so much. But it made me think of when we were talking about Vanquish. And you're talking about skidding around with his arse on the tea tray, and when obviously in the Home Alone game, when you're in houses, it's a tied-on platform, but when you're going between houses, you're on the slate. But there's obviously no momentum. You're not pushing yourself along. You're just kind of skidding about on his arse.
Oh, I'm over here, you big horse's ass. Come and get me.
But yeah, quite funny. My wife absolutely loved this one. Growing up, I only played it a little bit, but she was like occasionally when she gets a game in her head, she'll say, "Oh, do you remember this game?" For me, I don't need much of encouragement. If she says, "Oh, I fancy playing this old game," I'll try and get it for her. So I got a Jurassic Park. We played it Christmas Day, and she's like, "Oh, we used to play this all the time, and I could never ever beat it." And I remember beating it on the first try, and yeah, it is painfully short. It is pretty cool though. You know, yes, it doesn't look great. The graphics are very much that kind of first wave Mega Drive games where there's, you know, the blending or the meshing of the pixels isn't quite right, and the models all look weird. And it doesn't play great. It does play a little bit janky, but there's some really cool ideas of the way that you set up traps and stuff, and the way that you can create weapons.
Again, it kind of taps in to the story of the film as best it can. I mean, like the Kevin model is quite well done.
Yeah,
you know, his wee denims, his red jumper and stuff. So and obviously you come across like Hank and Marv eventually, and they're like away.
Yeah.
Taller and stuff like that, but Aye, classic movie. I mean, that was one that if you can think of anything that is at that time, classic Christmas movie, Macaulay Culkin, the kid star of the 90s, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It was ripe for an adaptation.
it's a great game to play at Christmas. I
Aye,
think, yeah,
aye.
it's got all the theme. You know, we watch the film every single Christmas. We have like a tradition where we, you know, the elves, they drop off the Christmas Eve box with their Christmas pajamas on and the hot chocolate, and we put on Home Alone, and then the kids go to bed after that. But so the film gets put on every single year.
Aye.
Might bust out the game this year. You know, that and Christmas nights have a little festive game up. But no, it's not going to win Game of the Year. I think it was reviewed quite badly back in the day, but I think it's decent enough. It does the job, gives you the feel, and that's what a lot of these do. They just give you the feel of the film. It's like we said, the feeling of playing in that world. I think that's kind of what all you were looking for.
That's all these tie-ins really are, mate, though, isn't it? I mean, it's that none of them are going to ever win Game of the Year, but you know, they're just meant to kind of extend the experience for the big screen.
Yeah,
Or from the VHS at that if you rented it for your Hollywood Video or Blockbuster or Global Video, wherever you used to get your tapes. But
yeah.
it was just a way of extending the experience of the film. That's all it is.
It's like, I mean, bring it back to modern day. It's kind of what I'm just so bemused that there isn't like a John Wick game. You know, I was watching the fourth film. The fourth film is fantastic, but it's just non-stop action. And I was watching it thinking, this should be a game. This like you don't have to do anything special with it. Just, you know, reskin Max Payne if you have to. Put him in a different environment. Just go around shooting people as John Wick. It's good old Keanu, and jobs are good. It just, I suppose, budgets for games these days are so big that they don't want to take that risk. But I just think that would have been a slam dunk. It's just a shame you don't see them these days.
No, I mean we are getting the RoboCop game, the first person game with obviously Peter Weller's
Yeah,
in it. I believe he's in it visually, but it's not his voice. Like, I've watched the clips of it; it doesn't sound
yeah.
that close to him. So, and I still think when I looked at pictures, I think his lips are too big for the again. It's just that kind of wee thing where, like, I just love RoboCop that much. Like anybody who knows me personally knows how much I love RoboCop. I looked at the picture and I'm his lips look too big. It's like it's not in scale, but
It's
other
reminded me of the loading screen for the Commodore 64 game. Obviously, the Commodore 64 game is notoriously unfinished. They made the third level impossible because they didn't finish the fourth level, so you can't finish. But the loading screen for it is obviously the movie poster of him stepping out of the car, and it's like obviously when they were doing the pixel art in those games back in those days, obviously they look a bit wonky. But it's like they did the first bit as best they could, and he looks completely weird. His face, I think it's the way you're talking about his lips there. But it's like when they got down to like his leg and the door, it's like they just gave up, and it's just a complete. But it's got that music, the old.
Oh man! And they made him blue in RoboCop 2, the pure weird suit.
Yeah,
It's like, and then they messed up his brains, and it's like, Park, thank you for not smoking.
I was going to say that bit. That's fantastic.
Waste makes haste, for time is fleeting. A rolling stone is worth two in the bush. It's like, go, a refrigerator, peckerneck. Bad language makes for bad feelings.
Yeah, you know, it's great in its own way. It's just a little bit silly, isn't it? The second one compared to the first.
The first 10 minutes are the best bit of the film. see that the cops are on strike, stupid. Can't you hear that? And then they get saying it's like the cruiser comes around the corner. It's like, see what I tell you, I'll fix him. And then he gets the bazooka. Fucking cops. Then it's almost in the street, and they blow it to bits. And they're loading up the truck, and it's like the foot comes out. And it's like, Dun. Then he gets it and the gun comes out. That's it. Oh, it's like there was like 15-year-old me going mental. Like,
Oh, yeah,
yep.
you're making me want to watch RoboCop again. But all of these are making me watch films at the moment. The last one we've got on our list, mate, is I'm glad you chose this one because it's one I often forget about. But this is another another kind of law enforcement figure. This is Dick Tracy, which is this is a really interesting game, I think, because it's kind of a run and gun, but then you're shooting guys in the background as well. It's a great kind of mix of genres, I think.
Aye, it's because well, obviously whenever you've got A as your pistol, B is to jump, and C is to use the machine gun.
Yeah.
But whenever you press and hold C in to fire the machine gun, the D-pad actually controls.
Yeah.
So like, the spray of bullets becomes like a kind of cursor.
Yeah.
So you've got kind of your blue enemies and your pink enemies on the kind of normal kind of left to right plane, and then at windows and out of doors behind cars you get the green guys.
Yeah.
Who who can't be shot with anything but the machine gun. So like the kind of Warren Beatty based kind of sprite is just like spraying this machine gun, like, and windows are getting, there's fire hydrants getting off, there's phone booths getting destroyed, and God knows what else. It's just madness, but it's good. Again, it's that kind of very classic of the time side scrolling shooting, but that kind of wee extra mechanic makes it quite interesting because you can't ignore them.
No.
It's like they'll just, you see their bullets getting gradually closer to you. They bounce off the road towards you. But it's again, it was one I stuck on to a wee shot before we came on, and I got to the end of the first level. It was bloody good fun.
Yeah, I think it is. It's kind of like a melding of your usual, a little bit like Rolling Thunder mixed with Dynamite. So obviously the side-on bits, I feel like it's kind of a Rolling Thunder sort of game. But then when you get the machine gun out and you're shooting enemies in the background, like it's a Dynamite Duke, where where you're it's basically a shooting gun game, but with the cursor instead of a light gun. So I think it's good, and I think it harkens back to, I say it harkens back. It kind of predates games like Galactic Attack, which are shoot 'em ups, where you obviously you have you shoot things in the background as well as obviously on the immediate in front of you. So like obviously Galactic Attack, you have to lock onto stuff when it's kind of below your range of sight on the screen. That's kind of how, we're talking about early 90s, very early 90s, but already starting to think about beyond that dimension. And it's a very different, very novel. And again, it's another one that got quite harshly reviewed. But I think it's a sort of game. It got ported. Again, it was another one that got ported all over the place. I mean, it got definitely the Master System port is pretty decent, pretty close to the Mega Drive game.
Again, the Amiga version was nothing like the Mega Drive game. Absolutely nothing like it. I mean, the bits whenever you fire the machine gun actually reminded me a bit of T2, the arcade game.
Yeah,
the wee round kind of bullets and
yeah,
spraying it about. Just it kind of reminded me a bit of that.
Yeah, because you can see kind of the trace of the fire, can't you?
That's right.
Yeah. Although it's with a machine gun rather than a pulse rifle.
Aye, and you get that nice kind of like comic book kind of style between the kind of missions as well, and you can see Warren Beatty's kind of resemblances in there. Obviously it's the kind of hat covers like the kind of eyes, but you can see that it is meant to be like his face. And again, that just kind of adds to the kind of character as well, the kind of the font and stuff, that kind of merging of comic book and movie again. Yeah. So I had a good laugh with it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's just reminded me of Judge Dredd on the Mega Drive. Obviously, it's not one on our list to talk about, but it's one where, again, it was based on the Judge Dredd film. The film, obviously, based on the comic book. But, the thing about Judge Dredd is, yes, it's based on the film, and you can see that the model used for Judge Dredd is the Stallone one, albeit he never takes his helmet off in the game.
Aye.
But then I remember beating Judge Dredd. We're going off a tangent on another game. I remember beating Judge Dredd. Hard game, but got to the end. or I thought I got to the end. This is the thing, and kill Judge Dredd's brother Rico in the cloning thing. I was like, I've done it. I've done it. And it's like the dark judges have arrived. I was like, that's not in the film. That's from the comics. And you have this whole bit. It was a film adaptation that led very heavily into the original comics and source material. And I think that's kind of what Dick Tracy does, which is almost inverse of what RoboCop and Terminator. That's a comic, but then adapting it to a film. But yeah, it just shows how intertwined those three worlds are, which was quite novel back in the 90s. Obviously, with the MCU and all that sort of stuff. Now everyone's probably sick to death of this sort of stuff. But back then, this was all new and exciting stuff.
Mate, while you were talking, I was just imagining, like, could you imagine a cyberpunk styled Judge Dredd game based on the Carl Urban film?
Yeah, God.
Mama, I am the law. Carl Urban was absolutely immense as Judge Dredd. Honestly,
was.
Make another one.
I know. It feels like we've been robbed of not getting a sequel to that, because that film was so good.
Because he's too busy making the boys, mate. That's why. So the Bella Ange Posty called me this. You love a bit of gravy, mate.
That's our manager you're talking about there. In entry twice.
But I mean, I'd love to have. I thought that, but again, because of the kind of visual style of the Carl Urban Judge Dredd film, very kind of psychedelic. Obviously, the whole kind of basis about that drug that slows down time and stuff like that. The kind of cyberpunk style. Because even the who's the gang very early on in Cyberpunk? Mind you, go to do the deal.
I've never played Cyberpunk.
What?
No, I've never played it.
Oh, mate, seriously, if you've got a Series X, it runs beautifully on it. It's fine, but there's a gang, and people who have played it will know what I'm talking about. You basically go to acquire this kind of bot at the start, and you go to see these guys, and they're like mechanically enhanced, like they've ripped out their eyes, and they've got like one red eye, or bits of their face have been all changed, and they look literally like something out of 2000 AD comics. I'm like, make a Judge Dredd game.
Yeah.
It's like that. It would be amazing.
Yeah. No, and I suppose they could, and it just becomes about the licenses, doesn't it? I mean, it's the frustration with a lot of this stuff. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the Mega Drive games, and as I say, mate, it feels like a lost art. Obviously, we've got the Avatar games coming, but one I was thinking of, there's that Terminator Resistance game on the Xbox. That's meant to be pretty decent.
I've heard a few folk talking about that.
Again, it's not gonna win any Game of the Year awards or anything like that. And it's like, yeah, as a game, it's kind of but when you got the license, sometimes that's all you need. It's just a shame we don't see these games anymore.
That's it. Just the licensing being official is enough to bring in fans of the movie, and that's exactly what these tie-ins were. It was meant to get people who'd watched the movie extending their experience and make the kids who played the game want to see the movie, even though it was probably way above their age rating.
Yeah.
In the 80s and 90s, parents didn't care. It was just go and watch it.
No, it's exactly it. I mean, I think the whole thing kind of peaked with the PS2 era. That's when we had loads. I mean, they were pretty crap, a lot of them, as I was saying. I've got Beverly Hills Cop back there, which someone included it in a bundle.
Beverly Hills Cop game.
They just wanted to get rid of it, and it's so bad. It's so bad. I think that generation killed it. There was so many of them, and they were all so terrible. Even Enter the Matrix was. I like Enter the Matrix, but I like it because it's the Matrix. It ties in with the film. I know it's I get to be Neo and run up walls and shoot in slow motion. Well, you don't get to be Neo, do you? No, that's the other one. The Enter the Matrix game. You get to play as Jada Pinkett Smith's character. I like the way it tied in, because it tied in with the film, and it was kind of, you couldn't get the whole story of the film unless you played the game. I don't know how wise that was.
No chance. No. I was still trying to think of how a Beverly Hills Cop game would work.
It's first
Like,
person.
is it,
Yeah.
read my
Uh,
lips, $5,000.
oh, I'll send it to you, mate. Get your PS2 and you can. I'll subject you to it. But yeah, as I say, I think the PS2 era got bloated and it basically killed it off.
Aye.
But yeah, the Mega Drive era, though, I think that why we chose this, why we chose this game, is because they were great fun. All of these, obviously they're not masterpieces, not all of them anyway. Probably make an argument that Aladdin, RoboCop versus Terminator are knocking on the door, but these games were.
They're the kind of definitely the kind of top two examples, mainly because they tapped into obviously the kind of visual style. They were a tier above, and obviously the kind of the sheer depth of lore for RoboCop and Terminator, that the fact they did those two so much justice and then merged them together.
Yeah. But mate, it's been great fun as always, especially talking about these brilliant film adaptations. Just feels like, as I say at the beginning, we're back in 240p. Coming out the shadow of the 80s filming. It's been an absolute blast, mate.
I have enjoyed it, mate. I always love reminiscing. I mean, the 80s and the early 90s are kind of like peak cinema for me. Just the creativity and the sheer madcap nature of it, that they weren't afraid to try anything. And
no.
I feel privileged that I'm old enough and grumpy enough to have seen these films and that whenever they were absolutely brand new, and enjoy some of these games as well. So it's been great fun, mate.
Yeah, coming up when they were brand new, seeing them when they were on a grainy pirated VHS.
Living a dream, mate. Living a dream.
So I hope our viewers, our listeners have all enjoyed that. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like. If you've if you want to share your thoughts on some of these games or add your own, what are your favorite movie adaptations on the Mega Drive or any Sega console for that matter, please let us know in the comments below. You can get in touch with us on Twitter if it's still going when it airs. You can catch me at Swooper_D. You can catch James at the Segaholic. You can catch the account at Sega Guys. You can also find us on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok. Please reach out. But until next time, we'll see you on the Sega side.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.